Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to begin. My name is Paul Oyaski. I'm the director of Cuyahoga County's Department of Development. Your host here today is Cuyahoga Next Advisors, a special group formed by Commissioner Peter Lawson Jones back in 2004. At that time, the county had begun investing in economic development, and Commissioner Jones formed Cuyahoga Next Advisors in order to obtain regular input from the public on the type of programming that the county should be involved in. A number of program initiatives grew out of Cuyahoga Next Advisors, including a strategic plan in 2005. Key parts of that strategic plan led to the creation of the Cuyahoga Innovation Zone program that is currently active in Mayfield Village, Midtown, Beechwood, and at the Hopkins Aerotropolis. It also led to the North Coast Opportunities Technology Fund that has benefited 12 new high-tech startup companies in Cuyahoga County. It has had an ongoing relationship with the Energy Development Task Force, focusing in the short term on offshore wind development. A number of studies are underway to prove the financial and engineering feasibility of offshore wind. It has also led to the Cuyahoga Commercial Redevelopment Fund, where $13 million was invested over several years in making major renovation to some of our debtor commercial property in different areas. We're here today because there's a tremendous interest in economic development, from President Obama and his administration down to the mayor of the smallest village. We are pleased that most of the county executive candidates are joining us here today. Economic development takes up about 2% of the county's current budget, but economic development is a key priority. I think you'll hear that more from the candidates. We are interested to give them an opportunity to speak on their version for economic development with the new government. This is an auspicious occasion for a number of reasons. Number one, the Indians beat the Yankees last night. And any day the Yankees lose is a good day, in my opinion. You don't have to agree or disagree with that. So, Secondly, this is a historic milestone in our county's history. Our county is 200 years old. The voters have strenuously shown they are interested in a new form of government, which begins in January of 2011. So we are in the middle of history making. And one of these candidates behind us will be leading us on into the 21st century. We wish them Godspeed and good health, regardless of who's elected. Finally, we are here to hear more about a very interesting topic, which is economic development. I would ask Commissioner Jones, the founder of Cuyahoga Next Advisors, to add his brief remarks before Gary Holland begins moderating the actual remarks. So, Commissioner Jones, thank you for joining us. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. We are keeping a record, so turn off those darn electronic devices. Thank you.
Let me say this. I think we can start off with a little bit of economic development. I promise that if I catch Alex Rodriguez's 600 home run in the next 2 days in Cleveland, that I will give 99% of it to the county for economic development. So that's the first promise. Let me say this, Paul, thank you so much for the great work that you've done as our Director of Department of Development over the years. As Paul mentioned, what is now Cuyahoga Next Advisors, formerly called our Blue Ribbon Economic Development Task Force, has been meeting since 2005. And we know that there has indeed been, during my tenure as a member of the Board of County Commissioners, and certainly over the last several years, a significant amount of attention that's been devoted to the county's role in economic development. The charter, which was approved last November, states in relevant part, there shall be an economic development commission, the members of which shall be selected and qualified as follows. One member shall be selected by each of the following: the county executive, the council, the mayor of the city of Cleveland, the Cleveland Cuyahoga Port Authority, the Cuyahoga County Mayors and Managers Association, the Greater Cleveland Partnership, the executive secretary of the North Shore Federation of Labor. Well, the fact is that the Cuyahoga Next Advisors has, over its 5-year tenure, had 178 individuals participate from 120 organizations. And we have had representation substantial from the Mayors and City Managers Association, from the North Shore AFL-CIO, from the Greater Cleveland Partnership, from the Mayor's Office in the City of Cleveland, obviously from the county, and also from the Port Authority. So there have been meetings that have actually been larger than what's been proposed through the charter to focus on economic development. In addition, it goes on, the charter goes on to say the Economic Development Commission shall prepare and present to the council an economic development plan for the county, for actions to be carried out by the county itself and in cooperation with other public and private agencies and organizations for the purposes of enhancing the prosperity and well-being of the county and its residents and communities. Again, a work plan was prepared after probably hours and hours of workshops that involved these scores of individuals who, whether they came from the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofit world, from healthcare, from higher education, from nonprofits, from a number of venues, individuals who were focused on the issue of economic development, had experience in the area, and were able to prepare for the county a plan on how Cuyahoga County might be a better partner in terms of economic revitalization, economic development programming. So we like to think that through Cuyahoga Next Advisors, through the Blue Ribbon Economic Development Task Force and its many members, that we are at least as a legacy giving to you, and one of you will be the next county executive, and to the county council members, at least a leg up, a foundation upon which you can build. The determination was made that the county needed to be actively engaged in economic development. Before 2004, none of its dollars were actually general fund dollars flowed to economic development. But since then, there has been a sea change. And even though today economic development only makes up 2% of the county's budget, what's more important to note is that of our discretionary funds, those dollars that don't have to be spent for one purpose or the other, of our discretionary funding, over 40% is going to economic development. So I think that shows the commitment that the county has made, and obviously in the future will continue to make to economic development. You've heard about our Innovation Zone program, our North Coast Technology Opportunity Fund, where we've been able to see the county act and perform almost as a venture capitalist, providing dollars for fledgling entrepreneurial ideas, generally in high tech, that have shown the ability to quickly draw other funds. Because although we've provided $804,000 to the various, well, I guess it's more than that now, probably close to $1 million to those that have benefited from our North Coast Technology Opportunity Fund, that has helped to leverage well over $2 million in follow-on additional private sector funding. So through what we've done with North Coast Technology Opportunity Fund, through what we've done with Innovation Zones, through the grant that was recommended by the Cuyahoga Next Advisors to what was then One Cleveland is now One Community, you can get an appreciation of the role that the Cuyahoga Next Advisors has played in terms of many new and exciting initiatives here in the county. I can remember that Paul Clark, who was with National City Bank and now is one of the top officials with PNC, once noted that Cuyahoga Next Advisors is the foremost, for him, network of men and women actively engaged in economic development in this community. And so we do hope that that Cuyahoga Next Advisors is sustained in some form once come January 2011, when the new county government structure goes into place. The only other thing I want to say in closing is that Cuyahoga Next Advisors and the programs that we oversee represent but a slice of what the county has been doing in the area of economic development. And at the beginning of the transition, I said it was important that those of us who want to make sure that the next government gets off on the best foot possible, that it was going to be essential for current county employees and staff to understand that there are things that we can learn and do better. But it was also important for those who aspired to lead us in the future to understand that there are a number of outstanding programs that ought to be continued and sustained even post-2010. So obviously welcome you, so appreciative of the fact that you have done what is very difficult and put yourself out there for the scrutiny of voters. So very pleased that you're here today to talk about your economic development plans. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Gary Holland and on with this very important show.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gary Holland. I am a member of the three-member transition advisory group that is captured in 1307 of the county charter, along with Joe Nani and the county administrator, Jim McCafferty. I was asked today to moderate this, and I will take some time to kind of lay out the rules of the day so that all the candidates will have a fair chance. What I have here in front of me, if it ever works, and Greg will have to ensure that it does, will be a timer that will allow 10 minutes for each candidate to provide opening statements to determine whether or not they will lead this county at some point, to give you the information that you need. The conversations today with these 10 candidates, and we have one candidate that has not appeared yet, and he still may be en route, is to, as Commissioner Jones indicate, provide the leadership and vision that you will need to understand prior to the primary election and then the general election. I only want to make one narrative statement, and that is to read the relevant parts of the county charter preamble. It says, "We, the people of Cuyahoga County, Ohio, desire a reformed county government to significantly improve the county's economic competitiveness. With it, the taxpayers of Cuyahoga County can have one, focused, effective, and accountable leadership, job creation and economic growth as fundamental government purpose, thereby helping the county do a better job of creating and retaining jobs and ensuring necessary and essential health and human services." And another relevant section of this and pertinent part says there should be an improved focus on equity for all of our community and citizens. With that, let me set the stage for this session of this candidates forum. One, we would ask that anyone who has a cell phone please silence those devices so as not to interrupt any of the statements that are being made today. The rules of engagement are, as I indicated, 10 minutes for each candidate to present their views on economic development, job creation, and how to move this county forward. The order is based on a random draw. Some of you who arrived earlier may have seen Greg holding an envelope and people dipping their fingers in, and I will announce the order momentarily. Then in the question and the answer section, there are cards that the audience should have. If you have a question, Michelle will collect those. She's sitting to my left, standing rather to my left, and Marilyn will also assist her. You can write those questions down and then pass them to the left side. In the Q&A section, we will have 2 minutes to answer each of the questions, and then I will take candidates in reverse order so as not to give an unfair advantage to any particular candidate. We would ask that we know that this is a civil group, that you would refrain from any outbursts and thunderous applause to show your allegiance to any given candidate. And then, as you may have noticed as well, to the table and to the left, the candidates have their literature outlining their various programs and visions for the county. So let us begin. My first assignment here is to introduce those that are on the stage today. These are your candidates for the office of county executive. The first in order of appearance will be Ken Lanci. If you would stand, sir, so that the audience could see you, and I won't block their view. I'm a big guy. The second would be Mayor Ed FitzGerald. Matt Dolan would be third. Don Scipione is our next candidate. Tim McCormack, who's sitting on the end, will follow in that order. Also by David Ellison. Diana Lynn Hill will come afterwards. And then Victor Voinovich. The last two would be Terri Hamilton Brown. And then finally, Paul Casey. And should Mr. Saffold arrive, then he would come to the podium last. So now that we've gotten all the necessities out of the way, let me begin. The first to approach the microphone will be Mr. Ken Lanci.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. And I want to thank Cuyahoga Next in their leadership on job creation in Cuyahoga County. I'll wait till the clock starts. I don't see anything. I don't see anything. Oh. Oh, it's already going. All right, I lost some time already. Okay, let's go. Well, okay. As I prepared for this forum, and as I've gone through the county and visiting a number of offices and met with a lot of business people, a lot of labor people, I've met with mayors, I've met with educators, the common theme seems to be that we're not doing something right. And with all due respect to Mr. Peter Lawson Jones, I've listened to all that the county has done. I've listened to what all of Cuyahoga Next has done. And as I sat there, I said to myself, so what are we doing here? It seems that there's been a lot of effort put into economic development, but yet there's a lot of disappointment as to how things have turned out. And I ask myself, how do we change that? What is the dynamic that needs to be changed? Obviously, the new county government is going to give us a single leader. That single leader has to have a vision, has to have experience to make a difference. And as I listen to all the things that are in place, quite honestly, my speech talks about a lot of the same things and some of the ideas that I've gotten from other people, but I could almost throw it out because the emphasis here is about development, but we have had a lot of great people working on this. So it leads me to believe that there's a lack of a vision. There's a lack of an effort by people, all the people, to get behind somebody and their ideas. Somebody who's willing to kind of stick their neck out and make a decision. And I think that's what the new government allows us to do. We're able to look at somebody, elect somebody, and say, okay, you're responsible. Do what you've done, and hopefully things will change here. Well, I can tell you that I'm the candidate who has 40 years of business experience. I have done turnarounds, I've done mergers, acquisitions, and that experience, to me, seems to be more critical today after I've listened to everything that Mr. Lawson Jones has said, because somewhere along the line there is a disconnect, and somehow, some way, we have to pull that together. I have to say that my vision for Cuyahoga County is more like a vision for Chicago than Detroit. And at the end of my 4-year term, you will have an activist county executive who will go out and get jobs, not sit back and wait for the jobs to come. In all my years of business, no one has ever come into any of the companies that I've owned, and it's been a lot, and given me an order or given me an opportunity. I've always had to go out and get it. I would have to market myself or my company or my representatives. And that should be no different here. I don't know that the effort has been made to develop the asset list that we have and actively identify companies that we want to go after. And as a result, I think that it has been to our disadvantage at times not to be aggressive and to go look for those jobs and look for those companies that would fit what we do here in our area. Workforce development is a phrase we hear very often and has developed very well at Tri-C. There's a lot of opportunities in workforce development that have yet to be identified. We have $2 billion of construction coming in. We have a MedMart, we have a casino, we have St. Vincent, we have UH doing building, we have Cleveland Clinic. We have a vibrant opportunity at this time to be able to say, okay, that's $2 billion, there's a good start, what are we gonna do? What we're gonna do is, we need an executive who has experience in leveraging those assets. You have to have someone who has sat in a boardroom with business people and made a deal to bring them to this county. Nobody's just gonna walk in here and say, boy, Cuyahoga County looks nice. I think I'd like to come there. I mean, let's not forget LeBron James walked out on us. And for all of his reasons, and personal, and as bad as they may be, it didn't send a very good signal for Cleveland. I think we did get a lot of empathy. I mean, people felt sorry for us, but I'm tired of people feeling sorry for us. I'm tired of the fumble, okay? I'm tired of the, you know, the Hail Mary, the interception, and everything else that we seem to go through. You know, CC Sabathia. I mean, it's whatever. Let's deal with it. But let's take a positive approach. Let's try to develop what we would consider to be a positive attitude. Change the culture in Cuyahoga County. I will change the culture in Cuyahoga County government as well. I want to have a government that works for all the people. And I consider this reform the ultimate turnaround and acquisition and merger that I have ever done and will ever be done in this county. For 3 decades, this is what I've done. You will get excellent services and better overall value. I see us in the model of Chicago, adopting that can-do attitude about going and getting jobs, making it easier for employers to locate here. Chicago nurtures employers and helps them grow and prosper. Chicago goes out and gets those jobs the way we are going to go out and get those jobs. They use their lakefront to their advantage. They have done a wonderful job. Why is it that we can't meet with those people and understand what they've done? It should be our responsibility to go around the country to seek out best practices. And that's what I will do as the executive. Why am I running? A lot of you know, you've heard the story. Some of my opponents think it's a competitive advantage, but I died 3 years ago. They brought me back, obviously, as I stand here today. Friends told me there was more to do. Friends told me that, you know, the man upstairs is not done with me. So, consequently, I every day continue to do what I've done always. And one day, the issue 6 comes up, it passes, and a few weeks after, a friend said, you should do that. And I said, why would I want to do that? That's politics, I'm not into that. A few weeks later, they said, you should do that. So after hearing that a few times, I woke up one morning and said, you know what? It's exactly what I do. I do turnarounds. I've been involved in the community for 15 years and giving back and doing the things that we need to do in the social service area. And so I gave it a consideration, and I believe that's what I have to do, and that's why I'm doing it. And I'm going to take all of my skills and devote all of my time into doing that. My first point is about public and private partnerships and renewing. There's nothing on the screen. Oh, wow. And to renew public and private partnerships and the tradition of loaned executives to help Cuyahoga County. With the 11 districts of economic development, for economic development, we will employ a job creating specialist and 1 financing expert per district. Each person will have an extensive financing background or business development background and to be a loaned executive from a company or any financial institutions that will participate. They will give their time and their expertise for the greater good, as I am. Remember, you lead by example. We will scour the country and the world to identify companies, okay, who would want to locate in the area, as well as to speak to our existing corporate citizens and ask them to locate their vendors or customers in the area to take advantage of proximity. Next, I will establish the asset website and call it Market Cuyahoga. You cannot market what people don't know about. I will place every available piece of land, commercial property, and asset that we have in Cuyahoga County, not just a realtor's, one realtor has this, one has that. We will list everything available so all the cities could benefit from this site. We will list all of the employed people, unemployed, employed, that want to change jobs or do something better so that we have additional jobs to provide. We will identify what those assets are and we will target those companies. That's what you have to do. You have to go get it. Nobody's going to bring it to us. Casino gambling is coming, and I propose using the casino funds to attract and keep jobs. Cuyahoga County is slated to receive an estimated $18 million per year. I recommend allocating a portion of casino revenues towards new and aggressive economic development programs and will fill gaps that state and local funding does not address. Now, there will be no excuses about higher taxes because I will negotiate tax relief to the companies that want to make a deal and make a win-win deal for all the people in Cuyahoga County. So, no more excuses about high taxes and chasing away jobs and investment for Cuyahoga County. I will negotiate with new employers to come to Cleveland and eliminate those tax issues. But remember, no school district, no community, no mental health agency will be adversely affected by lowering business taxes. This is a win-win situation. It'll bring jobs to our county. We will be the leader in wind energy. We make things in Cleveland, and we can manufacture all the parts that are needed. I will doggedly pursue green industries to locate facilities, distribution, and corporate headquarters of energy companies right here in Cuyahoga County. Lastly, I will bring together the mayors and business leaders, all, to put together the solid action plan around creating new business and jobs creation. Local red tape is killing us. We cannot sugarcoat this. We are in trouble, and we have to operate in a much different manner to survive. By reassessing, time is up. Well, thank you all very much.
Before I introduce the next speaker, I would like to acknowledge Mary Dennehan, who's in the audience. She is the co-chair of our public engagement work group and has worked very hard along with hundreds of others to bring these public forums throughout the county. So Mary, thank you for your service. Our next speaker, and what the candidates are looking at here isn't actually a countdown. It's flashes 5 minutes and then 2 minutes and then there's a stop, but I think we're trying to reboot that to show a running clock. We would ask Ed FitzGerald to come forward at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Thank you for everyone who sponsored this important forum this morning, and good morning. And I'm going to list out what I think are our 15 key principles. They're not an exclusive list, but 15 key principles that I would seek to follow as county executive when it comes to economic development process. And I would remind you as I go through this iteration of these 15 points to please remember Mr. Holland's admonition to withhold your thunderous applause, which I'm sure will be difficult for you, but try. And I'll also try to, I will try to resist making any baseball analogies for the rest of the campaign, actually. The first principle, I believe, is to assemble a team in county government that is made up of the most talented individuals that we have in this community from both the private sector and the public sector. One of the things I try to do as mayor of my city when I appointed my directors is I included people that had served in government and served ably, but I also included people that had never served in government before. And I think it's very important to use a loaned executive concept, as Mayor Voinovich did many years ago in Cleveland, and also to recruit full-time staff from the private sector as well as the public sector. You can't run government entirely as a business, but there are principles of business that are applicable and appropriate for government, and I think that's very important. Secondly, we have to have a rigorous, methodical process to make government more efficient in the first place in order to drive economic development for two reasons. First of all, because when government is inefficient, it tends to bind the private sector in unnecessary red tape. And secondly, if we're going to fund these programs to the scale that they must be funded, we have to create budgetary capacity. In my city, I increased the amount of funds that we dedicated to economic development, but we didn't do that by raising taxes. We did it by making government more efficient. And we have to make sure that we do that on an ongoing, methodical basis, not by across-the-board budget cuts, but by having performance-based, data-driven management that makes us a leaner government system. It's very important. One of the things, to follow up on something that Mr. Lanci said, many of the programs that have been implemented in the county and the innovation zones are an example of it, are very sound programs. They're well-designed, they make sense. Many of them, I don't believe, have the critical mass in order to really be a game changer. So they're making progress, but they aren't necessarily funded to the extent where they're really going to change the economic landscape. Third, when we receive new money in the county, we have to make sure, whether it's through sin taxes or the casino money that will eventually be finding its way into the county budget, we have to make sure that that is prioritized for purposes of economic development. And in particular, we have to make sure that it doesn't go for operations. Your operations budget can be kind of like a hungry child that continues to take more and more resources, and we have to make sure that those funds, especially any one-time funds, are segregated for the purposes of economic development. In order to close any budget gaps, we have to do that by becoming more efficient, not by using one-time money from the outside. Fourth, we have to build a cooperative economic model, and that means getting the 57 or so different municipalities to start working together in concert. One of the things that I've proposed is to try to have an overarching non-compete agreement, non-poaching agreement between municipalities. Other counties have done it. We can do it too. We have to get our various other government entities like the port and the RTA to start being on the same page. We have to build a very strong cooperative economic model with the city of Cleveland because they have a say in how those institutions are run. There's something called RPI, the Regional Prosperity Initiative, that I believe in. It takes a more regional approach in terms of where tax revenues are going through economic growth so that Cuyahoga County isn't trying to squabble with Medina and Lake and Cuyahoga County and Lorain County over the same businesses. It doesn't help our regional economy any if a business moves 1 mile over the border into Lorain County. And we have to start that discussion and try to get some real force behind it. Fifth principle I want to talk about is building on the strengths that we have currently, because although it is fine to talk about bringing businesses from outside the area, which I think is certainly appropriate, most of your job growth is going to come from existing businesses that are going to expand. And that's where most of the investment should be. So we need to look at where those strengths are, whether they be in advanced manufacturing or biotech. And it's not just the research aspect of that, it's the whole supply chain of those new products as they're brought to market. Next, I think we have to work more aggressively with marketing the region. And a lot of that is, again, in concert with both the nonprofits like Cleveland Plus and also the Cleveland Plus campaign, and also with the private sector to market our community, not just across the country, but across the world. We also have to focus very seriously on workforce development. There are thousands of jobs that are available right now in Cuyahoga County, and the trained workers don't exist to fill those jobs. That's a failure of the system that we have to address. And part of the problem, by the way, is the fact that there are sometimes state and federal regulations when it comes to workforce dollars, which are tying the hands of our workforce development departments. And that brings me to my next point, which is the county has to do a better job in being aggressive about how we can complement our programs with state and federal programs. And workforce development rules and regulations are a perfect example. The new county executive is going to have an opportunity to really have a major voice in both Washington and Columbus, because we still are an important region of an important state. And we need to be an active voice in order to give us some of the discretion that we don't have right now with some of those state and federal programs. I think it's also very important that with these large projects that are coming online, whether it be the Inner Belt whether it be the Med Mart, whether it be the casino, that they're integrated into the local economy. There's been a lot of discussion about that, in particular with the casino. We have to make sure that it's not a self-contained economic model where money is spent there and it stays there. It's very important to make sure, whether it's the East Bank of the Flats or the casino or the Med Mart, that there are local connections so that the dollars that we are investing in those projects are dispersed into the community. Some of the tools we have now, I think, can be better integrated into our economic development strategy. For instance, the land bank. Parcel combination when it comes to development is very important. So we have to take a very difficult situation, which is our foreclosure problem and all the blighted properties we have across the county, and we have to try to integrate that as much as possible into an economic development strategy where those parcels are used to combine into more developable parcels. I think that's very important. Immigration is something that there's been a lot of conversation about, and the county has an opportunity to take a leadership role. It's simply a fact that immigration is a key component of entrepreneurship. Every study shows that. We have to be forward thinking about that. We have to be open to immigration, and that can be a driver of economic growth. It is not a zero-sum game where immigrants are going to be taking away opportunities from existing residents. It doesn't work that way. It grows the economy, and especially with our population shrinking at the same time, it makes more sense than ever to do that. Also, when we have businesses that we are subsidizing, and these are subsidies that we're talking about many times, when we have businesses that we're subsidizing because we think they have growth potential, we have to make sure that we create standards for them. Here's what I'm talking about. In my city, if we're going to help subsidize a business because it's going to create a certain number of jobs, we're very specific about what kind of jobs those have to be. So in other words, if we're going to give a company a subsidy, it doesn't make sense for them to turn around and create low-wage, part-time, minimum wage jobs that don't pay benefits. So if it makes sense for the government to actually, for county government to actually assist a business in creating a job, we have to make sure that that's a living wage job and that those jobs go to our own residents. In addition, we've talked, and Ken mentioned a little bit about the lakefront. I don't think there's another example of a city in the country that does less with its lakefront. And it's a long-range goal. I mean, a lot of these things are not going to happen over time, but the county has to consistently push for integration of that asset into our economic plans. Now, those plans are on paper, but a lot happens between what a designer puts on drafts on paper and its actual creation. And finally, and my last point, as I run out of time, is human development. It is impossible to separate, well, that's a loud beep. It's impossible to separate human development from economic development. So we can't pull back on human development and expect to make economic progress. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We've heard from two of our candidates so far. The third will be Mr. Matt Dolan.
Good morning. I would remind my host that it's a great day today, not because the Yankees lost, but rather because the Indians won. So we must remember that. Look, I am Matt Dolan, and I'm running for county executive, and behind me are other candidates running for county executive. And this position exists because this county stood up last fall and said, we've had enough. We've had enough that there isn't any leadership, that there isn't a mission, there isn't a vision for this county, so that some of the fine work done by Cuyahoga Next wasn't really taking off or was done in a hodgepodge way. So issue 6, really the overnight sensation that took 20 years in the making. Now I look around this room, in 2008, I worked with the commission up here to create Cuyahoga reform. Not because of the corruption, which clearly was the final straw, but because we didn't have that voice, that single voice that could stand out and say, I'm going to make Cuyahoga County better, I'm going to make Northeastern Ohio better. And so I stand before you today as wanting to be that voice, to take advantage of this community's opportunity to create a mission a mission to run government with honesty and integrity, and to create a thriving, growing, and diverse population and economy. Now, I'd ask you to spend a few moments and go to my website, electmattdolan.com, to see my opinions on a myriad of issues that face this county. Today, we're going to talk about economic development. So I thought in the short time that I have with you, I would tell you what my economic philosophy is, what my goals are as county executive, and how you can measure success in economic development as me as county executive. First, government cannot create jobs. Government creates an environment for job creation. If government is non-responsive or static, it can cripple private sector investment. A good friend of mine who I see sitting in the front row here, second row, said once that Northeastern Ohio rode the wave of a 60-year car industry for 100 years, thus missing the last two waves of technology and aerospace and others over the last 40 years. So if government does not have its ear to the ground, if government is not actively involved in the economy, then it's not taking a lead along with the private sector to make sure that we are at the beginning of economic revival and not just scrambling to keep a dying business going. My goals of the county executive to lead economic development is to restore that public-private relationship that we once enjoyed here in Northeastern Ohio. And not just simply so that we can have financial investment, which of course is necessary, but we have the creative investment and the intellectual investment. So there is constant communication and dialogue between the government and private sector. So when there is a project led by the public sector, because of me as county executive continuously talking to private sector, we will be aware of the pitfalls of a project, that we can run the project more effectively, more efficiently, get under budget, and have it really work, not just for next year, but for the next 5 to 10 years. Then I'm going to create Cuyahoga Forward, an independent nonprofit. It's going to be separate from the government, but be an arm of the government. And its responsibility will be to coordinate all the economic development efforts that exist throughout the county. We have 59 different municipalities, each with an economic development department. We have a lot of fine agencies throughout the county that work each and every day to promote economic development. But what we don't have in this county is that face, that voice that goes out to businesses and says, I am here to work for you. What is it that you need to come and grow and retain and locate in Cuyahoga County? And I am not going to work in conflict with any of these other agencies, but in concert. So if there is a program that works, Cuyahoga Forward will match the employer with the agency that can best develop. We will take care of financing options, whether they be public or private, tax incentives, whether they're local, state, or federal, the real estate availability throughout the county. You know, whether you are large or small, there are government programs available to you. There are private loans available to you. But if you want to start Joe's Pizzeria and make 5 jobs, or you want to bring a 300-employee plant here, you need to be treated the same. You need to have all the access, availability of information at your fingertips, and it should be the responsibility of Cuyahoga County to provide it and not require the employers to go through the hoops. Cuyahoga Forward will engage in workforce development. We've all talked about workforce development. It is necessary. Technology is changing the way we employ people. We need trained workers. But from my experience at the State House and my experience of observing Cuyahoga County, there needs to be better coordination of workforce development. We need to make sure that we're training people to meet the needs of our employers. Perhaps the best example I can give you is, anybody ever called the utility company or called the service agency and you get a tape and it asks you to press in a number of buttons? You have to press in your home address, your account number, your telephone number. And after a while, you finally get a hold of a live person. And what's the first thing the live person asks you? The exact same questions that you just punched in. That's a lack of coordination. That's what we need to do. Take a lead to make sure we are training the workers to meet the needs of the employer. They can no longer work in silos. We have to recognize that nonprofits are a major part of Cuyahoga County and Northeastern Ohio. And Cuyahoga Forward will provide grant writers to them so they can access other dollars that they're not capable of doing due to time, due to lack of their own resources or lack of their own talent on the board. It is through this coordination of government and nonprofits, we not only can have them serve those who need the services, but they can be an economic driver for us as well. And Cuyahoga Forward will measure. Businesses will know how long it takes to get a permit. City A may take 10 days, City B may take 3 weeks. The world will know that, and hopefully we can encourage competition to get cities to understand that their delay is costing them, that employers are leaving because government is twiddling their thumbs. Cuyahoga Forward can measure the success of government and get that information to businesses. We need to understand and enhance our current assets. We are all talking about our lakefront, our universities, our hospitals. And Cuyahoga Executive must be the face, must coordinate all the wonderful assets that we have. I've spent time in the State House working to keep Continental Airlines here. I promoted University Hospitals and Ireland Cancer Center. And I sponsored a Great Lakes Compact to recognize the importance of our Great Lakes. Innovation. We must understand that entrepreneurship is the key to a vibrant society. And as Cuyahoga Executive, I will encourage our local incubators. I will seek out innovative industries, green, bioscience, and make sure that they understand that they have a place and a home here in Cuyahoga County. Education. We cannot separate education from economic development. If I were the county executive, I would have stood shoulder to shoulder with Dr. Sanders when he said, we need a better way to educate our children. We need to understand that early childhood education is not only the right thing to do for that child, it's the right thing to do for our future to develop future employees and future employers. We must understand that we have a great university system here, and through their research and through their marketing, we can attract the best and the brightest to our region. And it's that face of Cuyahoga County that can do that. We will know we have success when we see increased private sector involvement in Cuyahoga County. When private sector investment exceeds that of public investment. When we see an increased population. When we see an increased median wealth for individuals. When we see a number of startups existing throughout Cuyahoga County. And the charter will be our measuring stick. It calls for a 5-year economic plan to be renewed constantly, annually. It is that where we can measure whether my philosophy of private sector first, of our goals and our measuring is working, so that our citizens know that as county executive, we are putting our people first and not putting our politicians first. The quality of life in this area is tremendous. We've all chosen to be here. It's going to take a mission, it's going to take leadership to enhance the quality, to market what we have, and to put a mission to create a thriving, growing, and diverse population and wealth. Thank you. My name is Matt Dolan, and I'd like to be the first county executive.
Mr. Dolan, you had 2 seconds to spare. We're about a quarter of the way through our candidates, and once again, I think we should acknowledge that our hosts, Cuyahoga Next Advisors, have brought this forward for our informing the public of the candidates' positions. The next person that will come forward will be Mr. Don Scipione. Prior to his arrival at the podium, though, I would like to point out that the charter does provide for an 11-member county council, and as I look about the audience, there are several candidates for that office here. If you choose, you may stand up and be acknowledged by the audience. The importance of that, of course, is that you'll have 12 leaders that will be driving this county forward. Mr. Scipione.
Thank you, Gary. Say, can you give me that seat's 10 minutes too? No, another 10. Good morning. My name is Don Scipione. I am a scientist, a small business owner, a civic volunteer, and a reformer. Yes, I'm a rocket scientist, and sometimes it does take a rocket scientist. And I think this job is an example of where you need someone who really understands complexity and knows how to deal with it. When I graduated from graduate school in Southern California, I had a choice to go and make my home anywhere in the world. But I chose to come home. I chose to come home to my family, to my Rust Belt roots, and I chose to come home to make a difference. I opened my software business in the core city. I made a choice to hire graduates and interns from our colleges to give them their first-time jobs. And I've mentored over 100 of them over the last 25 years. I've made choices to enter various civic organizations, working in economic development, workforce development, arts and culture, education, international trade. I am a part of Cuyahoga Next Advisors. I know the good work Cuyahoga Next Advisors has done. I helped design the innovation zones. I worked to make sure that the county understood what intellectual property meant and how to couch it in their contracts so that they would make the entrepreneurs and their other partners satisfied that they weren't going to lose their secrets to a public organization. I worked with Midtown Cleveland for 13 years. I'm its longest serving chairman. During those early years when I was chairman, I led the initiative to do serious land banking where we started assembling property. That property that we've been assembling has just turned into the location of the State Behavioral Hospital. It's going to be 500 employees. I helped bring that to Midtown. I helped Midtown work with the county Next Advisors to help build this innovation zone of healthcare. So we're going to have a medical mart downtown and a health technology district stretching out to university hospitals. I was part of that decision making. I convinced our board that it was the right thing to do. I worked in the opera. I was its president for 9 years. I worked on the Workforce Innovation Board. And there, as chairman of the Economic Development Committee, I instituted the idea that yes, we need to do demand-driven workforce investment. You want to be trained, there's got to be a job out there. I helped the city realize that their Office of Economic Opportunity, the community planning and economic development should work together. Imagine. Well, the county has lots of good programs, and my economic development plan builds on those good programs. I want to work with council, and I want to work with council to create another big investment, not the medical mart, not the stadium, not cement and mortar, but a big investment product in people and neighborhoods. Education. Education. Education is the most cost-effective way we can get to economic development. Invest in Children is a great county program. We need to expand that program and extend it to the 3rd grade because research shows that you can do good pre-K, but you get lost and you're back to where you started by the 3rd grade if you don't follow it up. We need to make sure that by the 3rd grade, every student can read, write, calculate, and knows wellness. If we don't do that, we're going to have an endless wave after wave of illiteracy, poor workforce, and huge demand on county services. We've got to do it. It's a 10-to-1 payback on the investment. Another easy piece that we can move forward that is a great program that the county has established is their health care plan. They've got a health care plan. It's ready to roll out to all our local communities. That's going to cut the cost of those communities' health care expenses. It is going to help Metro Health get a better balance between paying and non-paying customers. That's an easy no-brainer. That doesn't take a rocket scientist. And I mentioned the health and technology industry, the medical mart and the innovation zone in Midtown and bioenterprise. That we've got to push forward as best we can, and I will be a big cheerleader for that because I rented space in the medical mart. I am one of those medical companies that is in Midtown Cleveland. I've won innovation grants from the state and from the national governments. So healthcare, that is a big piece of our future. But the bricks and mortar, we want to replace the bricks and mortar project with a people and neighborhoods. That people and neighborhoods are, one, the early education. We've got to make sure that happens. But two, it's the land banking. The land banking is a great program of the county. So far, it's targeted, it has in its sights about 700 properties. There are 10,000 of them. We need to go after all of those 10,000 of them. We need to fix the ones we can, we need to tear down the ones that we can't, and we need to deconstruct the ones that we can salvage. We need to do that. We need to do that with dollars. We need to do that with a judicial change. We have to ask our judges what laws do they need to make this process happen fast, not 2-3 years, but weeks. So the land bank. Those are my priorities for economic development. Healthcare, education, the land bank. I want to do that in 4 years. I am not a politician. I'm not looking for a career. I want to get this done in 4 years. Let me tell you something about regionalism, too, my vision of regionalism. Everyone talks about regionalism, but it's local regionalism they're talking about. They're how to get the local governments working together. And that's good, and we need to do it. But that's not the regionalism vision that I have. I have a regionalism vision that is global. We need to be a regional enterprise with people who have the same interests, the same values, and the same history. And that means Buffalo, Erie, Pittsburgh, Youngstown, Cleveland, Sandusky, Toledo, Detroit. That's the region that makes sense. That's the region that can protect our greatest resource, Lake Erie. And that's the region that can compete globally. I'm a 60s activist in my 60s. I've run a business for the last 30 years, and so I've somewhat mellowed. But back in those days, we wanted to remake the world. We knew we could remake the world. That fire still burns inside of me. So you need to go to donscipione.com, see what I'm about, join the campaign, and let's finish what we started last November. There are 3 people in this room who were leaders in last year's issue 6. There's Senator Dale Miller, there's Mayor Bruce Akers, and me. I made that choice last year. And now it's our chance. We have the status quo in our sights. Let's not let them get away. Thank you.
Like the movie, I recognize after drinking all this water that this ain't no country for old men. So if I disappear momentarily doing one of the speeches, it's not because of disinterest. I saw just recently, I know that's a Social Security joke. You have to be 65 to catch it, but let me just recognize 2 of the 3 co-chairs for the Economic Development Work Group that just arrived, Mr. Lee Trotter and also Judy Rawson. I'm sorry, I said Ransom. Rawson. I understand from earlier arrival that Mayor FitzGerald will have to leave to assume some official duties. So if you wish to be excused at this time, sir, you may. You won't have to feel guilty.
Mayor, Rawson was the leader in last year's campaign also.
And that didn't take away. You had 57 seconds left, so that was good. Thank you very much. And we will now resume the program. Our next candidate is Tim McCormack.
Good morning. Good morning. Commissioner Jones, thank you for providing us this foundation to build upon. I read all 80 pages of the document, and there's a lot of exciting material there, so I commend you. I'm going to speak to a vision this morning, a vision going forward, and I'd ask at some point that you consider traveling a short distance from where we are at this moment, on the mall, overlooking the Cleveland shoreline, one of our world's Great Lakes, stands an historic marker. Consider viewing it on your way out. It marks the day in 1903 that the world-class designer of the world's great cities presented a bold plan to Cleveland's renowned Mayor Thomas Johnson. It was part of what was known as the City Beautiful movement. Here is what Daniel Burnham delivered that day. He said this to Cleveland: "Make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood, and probably themselves will not be realized. Make big plans," he said to Cleveland. "Aim high and hope and work, remembering that a noble, logical diagram once recorded will never die. But long after we are gone, will be a living thing, asserting itself with ever-growing insistency." We are at such a juncture today, whereby we either make big plans or we will continue a decades-long decline, having become a mid-sized, mostly non-highlighted American city. My perspective, my motivation today is very much like yours. Mine is fueled today by the fact that I'm a father of 4 sons, all at the age of entering our job market. Our house is often full of bright young people, friends of theirs, who are mostly recent college graduates. Peggy is one of them who typifies their dilemma. Peggy lives with brothers and sisters in a big rambling Cleveland lakefront home. She loves to swim and boat in the lake as she did in the last 2 weeks. She loves her hometown. Matt, she loves our team. She loves everything about life in Cleveland. She's employed as a young math teacher in South Carolina because she went to where she could find a job. We don't ask those young people in our house any longer about what they're doing. It's just too embarrassing. It's not fair. So that's not a surprise to any of you today. But I refuse to believe, I absolutely refuse to believe, and do not think that we're whipped. Actually, I'm convinced we are one of America's least known jewels. How many Americans live on a major coastline and can access that coastline within minutes? How many Americans in those 57 communities that are referenced live in such a beautiful area, whether it's Seven Hills, whether it's Pepper Pike, whether it is Glenville, whether it is my Northeast Cleveland neighborhood, whether it is Detroit Shoreway? The options are unlimited to live in livable, beautiful, fun neighborhoods. How many Americans can live 25 miles from downtown and yet access that downtown within minutes? How many Americans can hear, thank you, Commissioner Jones and company, can listen to the Cleveland Orchestra on the 4th of July with 80,000 other people for free? How many people in America, and never discount this, have better families, have nicer neighbors, and better coworkers to work with every day than we do? And yes, I'm going to say it. Cleveland, Ohio's weather almost all of the year, over the oppressive heat and humidity unending in the south and other areas that are referenced in the document as being the target of major employers. A recent guest, Commissioner Jones, to your organization, the Economic Development Director of Allegheny County, which is booming in Pittsburgh because they have done some very bold things. He had some bold advice in reflecting to us in Cuyahoga County. Cuyahoga should determine its major assets and build upon them. When you drive into Pittsburgh today, you encounter highway signs that talk about coastline amenities. They have a river that flows through Pittsburgh, but there's the North Shore, the South Shore, and all of its amenities. We have so much more to offer than Columbus and Pittsburgh and so many of our competitors with that magnificent lake area and the Cuyahoga River that now has miles of rubble upon it, just as Pittsburgh had 10 years ago. Today, Pittsburgh is full of new development up and down its river course. They have a 200-mile port authority with multiple counties as part of the authority. The mayor of Pittsburgh and the county executive recently openly called for merging the city and the county. It hasn't happened yet, it may not, but it's an indication of a bold vision that they're willing to take on, and it's an indication of the same kinds of things, Mayor Akers, with your regional investment plan, with all of the things that need to be put on the table, that Canton-Timken is just as important to Cleveland, Ohio, and the future of our employment base as any entity here. We need to build personal relationships. I admit, and thank you again, Commissioner Jones, there was a fractured approach to the community's future often when I served on the commission. The mayor was over here, whomever that was at the time. The commissioners grumbled here. We never went out to Levin for purposes of studying together, and business people occasionally communicated with us about the future. I'm going to close off my part by saying this. Peter, the vision, the partnerships that your plan pulls together out of necessity, business leaders, the universities, the public officials, there should not be, going forward, a separate county development office. There should be a partnership whereby those persons work on development concepts every day, coexisting together physically and as they move forward with major projects. We no longer have time for division. We no longer have time for the ineffective approach that's been taken in the past. So Burnham said, we must think big, and if you're going to keep 22-year-olds here, you start with clearing off 10 miles of lakefront and 5 miles of riverfront, and you start to excite people. Thank you.
Halfway there, folks. I would just mention to you that the media is present today and that ISC, our office of within the county, is also recording this for a later permission on the county website, so this will be viewable by those who were not able to attend. Our next candidate is David Ellison, who has already arrived. Mr. Ellison.
Good morning. It's been kind of a long morning so far. I'll try to be quick with this. My name is David Ellison. I'm not a politician. I'm an architect. If I am elected, I'll do this job the only way I know how, by carefully analyzing the problems and coming up with creative solutions, just like I do in my regular work. Those creative solutions need to be ones that we can all agree upon and that we can implement. I'm a businessman. I have worked on large, complicated projects with budgets. And I commend the County Development Department and Peter Lawson Jones for the work that they've been doing, and this Economic Development Assistance Handbook that I have been studying. But as many programs as there are in here, I kind of wonder why we have this sense that it's not working. And I'd like to step away from the situation for a moment and look at it from a distance. But before I do that, I'd also like to say that I'm a candidate of the Green Party. This is the first election in Ohio's history where the Green Party has been allowed on the ballot. The Democrats and Republicans created ballot access laws that kept us off the ballot for all these years, and it took a federal court decision from a lawsuit by the Libertarian Party to allow us onto the ballots. And I thank the federal courts for being more fair than the legislature was. Who in the room has ever played the game Monopoly? Thank you for answering that. I think things may look and sound as though we have a free market and free trade, but in practical terms, global monopolization of the economy is taking place. Banks are too big to fail. Auto companies and airlines are bankrupted and consolidating. The big multinational corporations are bent on owning and controlling everything, including our elected representatives and even especially the President of the United States. And when they're done, off they'll go to the next place and they'll take the means of production with them. Does anyone ever wonder where all the machines that used to be in the factories around here have gone? They're not in the factories anymore. The only thing these corporations will leave behind is the mess they've made for us. The game of Monopoly only ends in one way, and I think we all know that. Here in Cuyahoga County, it feels a little bit like we're sitting on Mediterranean and Baltic avenues. Half of the dilapidated houses we built are gone, and the rest of the board is loaded with hotels owned by someone else. Actually, it's not quite as bad as that. We might have a few houses on Ventnor Avenue and Marvin Gardens, beautiful houses, and we've got the part of the electric company, and we've got the waterworks, and fortunately there's the community chest, but in the end, we all know how this game ends. I'm not interested in playing that game anymore. I want to change the rules. With a booklet like this, full of government-sponsored economic programs and loan funds and incentives like this, if it was all going to work, shouldn't it be working now? I propose that the foundations of our economy, the rules of the game, are not set up in a way that will let us win or even succeed. There's something terribly wrong with the way the game board is laid out and the way the rules are set up. The foundations aren't strong enough to hold up the economy we need and to move into the future and to avoid catastrophe. The existing programs are great, and we'll need to keep them and adjust them to be even better. And what I'm proposing does not mean that we start from scratch. In fact, my proposal is for gradual, though fundamental transformation of the economy into one which is ecologically sustainable and just. As an architect, I want to carefully go in and reinforce the foundation so we can build an economy we all want and need and know that can exist. To that end, The first thing has to do with public schools and our children. From kindergarten to 12th grade, we need business, entrepreneurship, science, and the arts to be taught. The children and youth of Cuyahoga County need to understand economics, business, money. They need to have a background in science so that they can be innovative, and they need to have a background in the arts so that they can be creative. For our adult population, we need training to be available for the workforce, for continuing education, and teaching the people what they need to know to be productive members of the society and the new economy. We need our own bank, and I propose to work with the state legislature to charter a bank of Cuyahoga County that will be limited to investing money locally. It will not sell its mortgages, trade in derivatives, or commit usury. Its main purpose will not be to transfer more wealth to the already wealthy. It will have a microfinancing component that will finance cooperatives, small business, and cottage industries. The one state in the United States that's not suffering a credit access crisis is the state of North Dakota. It's because they have the State Chartered Bank of North Dakota. You can look it up on the internet. We need a strong countywide independent business alliance, and we need to foster the development of more cooperative enterprises like the Evergreen Cooperatives. And if you haven't heard of them, you need to. The Laundry Cooperative is currently doing the laundry for the large hospitals here, where the workers actually own the washing machines and they do the work at a profit. We need to grow the economy from the ground up, one job and one business at a time, the only way it can really be done. There are several things we need to expand and develop for the new economy. The land bank needs to play a central role in the development of a countywide land use and management plan that will be a product of the 57 municipalities and will be codified so that it can be enforced. It will limit development to areas that can be served with sustainable mobility, that is pedestrian, bicycle, and mass transportation, primarily rail. It will facilitate the deconstruction of areas that are unsustainable. We need to accept and embrace the idea of a county that is not one large parking lot for a continuous suburban shopping mall, instead is full of open spaces and vacant land that can become orchards, farm fields, pasture land, playgrounds, and even new development sites, concentrating our population into more sustainable areas. I propose the establishment of a laborers and artisans corps modeled on the Civilian Conservation Corps. It would be a jobs program for suburban and urban youth from 16 to 60 years old that would do tangible capital improvements. And the creation of a county broadcasting cooperative that would be a job training program with the charge of monitoring and with a critical journalistic eye the new county government and the various municipal governments. It would be a hands-on civic lesson and government transparency insurance at the same time. In addition, it would produce culturally unifying variety show that would include hip-hop and polka bands on the same stage at the same time. It would help us get over this idea that somehow we're not one people living here on our small corner of this planet. And so you don't think that I'm completely unrealistic. We need to evaluate and make sure that our taxation structure is fair and competitive, and we need to make sure that unnecessary red tape is not hampering our economic development. I will assign or be a liaison to respond to any inquiry regarding a business that wants to relocate here or one that asks for help. These liaisons will facilitate the communication and understanding of government regulations and departments so that the process is as easy as possible. While large public projects will be necessarily a part of the ongoing jobs programs, as they have been and always will be, I also plan to focus on multiple, smaller scale, local redevelopment projects that engage and include businesses, nonprofits, municipalities, and that have a high potential for spin-off development and job creation. We need to make government in the county and among the 57 more municipalities more efficient. But at the same time, we're looking for ways to make things like school administration cost less and provide more benefit. We need to help make businesses and individuals here more efficient. For instance, if we can save money by consolidating municipal and county workers under a single health insurance program, how about that program be made available to businesses and individuals within the county? I'd like to see us create or use existing purchasing mechanisms to ensure that governments, businesses, and individuals in Cuyahoga County can buy everything from school books to health insurance, from natural gas to electricity, to computers and and other things, all at the most competitive prices available through cooperative, collective purchasing vehicles within the independent business alliance of the county. As an architect, I'm interested in building, but not only bricks and mortar. I'm interested in and committed to building a new and different, a more strong and vibrant economy that includes people rather than merely maintains them. I think the county government can play a leading role in this, and I want to be the county executive that builds the foundations that will make Cleveland and Cuyahoga County the most respected, most economically resilient, and self-reliant community in the United States. With your help, we can do it together.
Commissioner Jones, if I may exercise the prerogative of the moderator, I'd like us to take a 7th inning stretch, if I could use that, for about 10 seconds, so that it's in fairness to the remaining 4 candidates, you'll be sharp as they are. So I'll give you 10 seconds. I'll start the clock now.